As you may or may not know, I'm a guy who has a pretty unique opinion on the Star Wars film franchise in that I don't particularly hold the films in really high regard. Like, there are movies in the franchise that I like, but overall, Star Wars is one of those weird things where I think that the various spin offs and promotional materials, such as the comic books and the books and the video games and even some of the TV series that have come out, have all surpassed the things that they're building off of. I feel like, and this is not even me talking about pre Disney or post Disney, this is me talking about Star Wars pre and post Disney. I feel like these products that are just kind of like side stories where the creators have more freedom, where they're not really gonna have big impacts on the storylines, where they just kind of serve as background material. These are the storylines where I've always felt that the series has excelled. This is where I feel like the strongest creative voices have made their spark and they've left their mark on the franchise. And a lot of people are going to agree with me. Some of them are, a lot of people are probably going to completely disagree with me having this kind of opinion whatsoever on the Star Wars film franchise, but it is a unique example of a series where its various adaptations and spin-offs and that kind of stuff are, in my opinion, leaps and bounds better than the things that they're actually based on. Like, I will completely with a straight face say that KOTOR 1 and 2 completely fucking murder the Star Wars movies in terms of characterization, in terms of depth, in terms of good storytelling. Like, there is no fucking contest. The KOTOR games by themselves, ignoring all the other stuff, completely fuck the movies in the ass when it comes into the pure quality department. And but even in many of the Star Wars films that I don't like say Attack of the Clones or The Force Awakens, then movies that I don't like because I just don't think they're good, or movies that I acknowledge are just fine or that I even think are decent, but I just have strong where I just don't agree with the creative decisions and the mentality that went into making them. I can pretty much get out any fucking Star Wars movie and get a good time out of it. Or at the very least, if I'm not having a good time, there's always something I can latch onto. There's always some thread or character or performance or actor or piece of the movie or in one way or another where I can latch onto, that I can get at least kind of even barely invested in the storyline that's unfolding before my eyes. And Rogue One is the exception to that rule. This is the most tedious Star Wars film out of the whole lot that's come out thus far. There is literally nothing, fucking nothing, except 5 minutes of Darth Vader that managed to invest me or engage me in anything that's going on. Literally, this is a movie that feels 10 times longer than it actually is. Like, seriously, I turned on my fucking phone and I wanted to die when I saw that I was only half an hour into this thing, because the pacing is so glacially bad and there's nothing for me to care about whatsoever, where I am just dying. And then when I checked my phone again, just before the big third act finale, I once again wanted to die, where I was like, oh my god, there's still more of this left. And this is one of the rare movies that I've ever wanted to walk out of the theater of. Like, seriously, there were at least 3 different occasions where I wanted to reach over to my sister and tell her, can we please leave? I really don't want to watch this thing anymore. But my sister, she probably wouldn't want to leave. She didn't want to ditch it. So I just kind of powered on through. And because at least I wasn't alone in my misery. Like, even my sister, who's not like a big movie nut and who has, wildly different opinions than me on various films, especially this year where, she hated BVS, I liked the movie. We both walked out of this thinking, wow, what a fucking waste of time this was. And we were really disappointed because the last time we went together to see a movie was Fantastic Beasts. And Fantastic Beasts was a really damn good time. And this was fucking misery. This was actually painful to sit through. Holy fucking shit, where do I even start with this thing? Okay, this movie had very big production problems, and that is blatantly obvious, because this movie starts out as something that I wanted it to be and something that it set out to be. And that is kind of like a more morally gray Star Wars movie where the Rebellion are not the clear-cut good guys and the Rebels and the Imperials are not the clear-cut bad guys. And the movie kind of starts out like this, and that's kind of one of the few potentially interesting things that it had going for it. And then as the movie progresses, you can really see where they decided to fuck with it in post-production, because suddenly you have people having these really obtuse, really cringeworthy dialogues that feel like they were written from like the George Lucas era of the prequels, talking about hope and heart and fighting for hope, and then Jyn Erso starts giving these stupid Katniss Everdeen speeches to rally the troops. And suddenly, your gray, morally ambiguous movie becomes a generic, sappy Star Wars George Lucas-esque prequel film number 350 billion. Literally, that's how bad this movie is. Like, it literally has two completely different ideas for what it wants to be, and there is no attempt whatsoever to reconcile these two visions. Like, it's not even a thematic thing where the characters go through like this organic arc where they transition from like these morally gray characters to something closer to you know, what's kind of like the standard for Star Wars. It's not like a thematic thing. Like literally, the movie halfway through just fucking shifts gears and turns into something completely else that tonally makes fuck all with the side of jack shit sense with what came beforehand. Literally. Like, I can't even remember the fucking characters' names. Literally, that's how bad this fucking movie is. I cannot remember any of the actors or the characters' names. The captain dude, who's like Jyn Erso's like best friend in the rebellion or whatever the fuck, he starts out as a kind of an interesting morally gray character, and then suddenly, on the flip of a dime, he's like buying into this Katniss Everdeen bullshit, and I'm like, what? And then Jyn Erso starts as this kind of selfish character who doesn't like want to do anything with the rebellion. She doesn't trust the rebellion. She doesn't trust the Empire. And then all of a sudden she's like making these stupid fucking speeches, and suddenly the rebellion sees her as like this simple symbol to rally behind. And none of it works. None of it works. Like, seriously, some of the fucking dialogue in this movie made me want to die. I was literally shouting, "What the fuck is this?" several times throughout the entire movie. And the movie thinks it's better than it actually is, but it's not like that Civil War thing where the movie is bad, but it doesn't know it's bad, and it's trying really hard to sell its own bullshit. But this movie is a different kind of bad, where a lot of the times this movie thinks it's being smart and clever and funny, and when most of it falls completely flat or just makes you cringe, it becomes really, really annoying, because there's like this robot character who's supposed to be a classic, you know, AHK-47 ripoff, where he's a robot and he's kind of amoral, but he's also kind of quirky, and he makes like these sarcastic or deadpan quips, and you're supposed to find it funny because he's kind of an amoral sociopath. And that's fine. Like, I understand why people like those characters, but he is endemic of the problem I just talked about, where this movie feels like it thinks it's smarter and deeper and funnier than it really is, but this motherfucker's lines should, in theory, get you really invested into his character, make you care about him, but most of his dialogue falls completely flat. And any attempt at making you care about anybody who's not Darth fucking Vader in this movie falls completely flat. Literally, I gave zero shits about what was going on. I even heard about some people say, "Oh, no, Ivan, the first act is fucking bad," and it is, but the second and third acts are good. And I'm like, nope, this movie is all bad. The first act is just teeth-grindingly slow. And it kind of does like that BVS thing that a lot of people hate, where it has like a lot of moving parts happening at the same time. It's really jumpy. You spend 5 seconds with this character, then that one, and then the other one. And it takes a really long time for anything to happen. But none of it means anything. None of it's really building towards anything. They're just setting stuff up for the sake of setting stuff up, because they need the Suicide Squad to be assembled, basically. and get the ball rolling on the rest of the plot. But all the build-up, it doesn't mean anything. It's not giving you interesting insights into interesting people in like this war that's going on all around them. And it also doesn't help that the actors really do not give a slightest fuck about this movie. I don't know if this was just them being like annihilated by the fact they have to where they have to redo half the fucking movie because Disney is both chicken shit and incompetent. And maybe that's the reason why a lot of the actors look like they just want to get the fuck out of this thing as quickly as humanly possible. But almost every performance in this movie ranges from bland to bad. Seriously, besides Ben Mendelsohn, who played Daggett in fucking Dark Knight Rises, who a lot of people really, really hated, he is literally the only actor who gives a fuck and actually gives nuance to his character, because Carrick, the main Imperial bad guy, is one of the very, very, very few things where I can actually speak positively about the movie, where he's like this ambitious little troll who thinks he's smarter and more clever than he actually is. And it's really interesting to see how his whole world just kind of slowly crumbles all around him, and how his accomplishments, which aren't really his accomplishments at all, are all coming back to bite him in the ass. And that's pretty much one of the only through lines throughout the entire movie that actually works, and it helps because Ben Mendelsohn gives a really good performance. Whenever he's on screen, he has presence. When he's being authoritative and showing why he is kind of feared and respected, it works. But then when he's being a slimy weasel who's being put in his place amongst guys like Tarkin and Vader, it really, really does work, and it all feels really consistent with the personality, what we have that's being presented about Carrick. So that's pretty much the only positive thing I can say about the movie, minus the Darth Vader scenes. And holy shit, Darth Vader has a couple of really fucking good scenes in this movie, and whenever he's on screen, I instantly give a billion more fucks. The problem is Vader is barely in this fucking movie, at 5 minutes at absolute best, and when he's not there, I just don't give a fuck. And like I said, because there is nothing interesting about the storyline or any of the characters or any of the performances, and there's literally fucking nothing for you to even remotely care about except Ben Mendelsohn, who is not in this movie anywhere near enough for you to give a fuck about him, despite him probably being the only thing that works beginning to end. There's just nothing here. This is really a tedious movie. Just thinking about this movie makes me feel tired and want to slip into a fucking coma so I can just recover from it after 9 months of sleeping. That's how fucking tedious this thing was. And you can very clearly tell this movie was cut to shit. You can very clearly see where bits and pieces of Gareth Edwards' version are there, and where Tony Gilroy, I think, redid the shooting for the second half of the film. You can really tell where his parts come in, and a lot of these, and like I said, a lot of these scenes are trying to be really powerful and impactful, but because you don't give a shit about anything that's going on, you're either just going to cringe, not care, or laugh at scenes that are supposed to be really dramatic and serious. And it's really a shame because this movie thinks it has balls when it does what it does in the third act. And in a better movie, that would be the thing that really seals the deal, the thing that really shows you, holy shit, this was a good fucking movie. Instead, it just leaves you with a big load of whatever because you don't care about anything that's going on in this shit heap. So yeah, Rogue One. Is this the worst Star Wars movie? No, I think Attack of the Clones is still the worst one, but this is a very close second. Like, this is easily the least enjoyable Star Wars movie I've ever seen. Like, seriously, the Star Wars movies all have the same fucking tone, the same message, the same style of writing the characters, and all of that is here, and all of that is even more obnoxious than it ever was beforehand. But then, even for Star Wars movie standards, the characters in this are so paper fucking thin. I said it. I cannot remember who the fuck is called who's played by who. I don't care about their interpersonal relationships. If you're someone who thinks the Guardians of the Galaxy and the Suicide Squad becoming like this joint group of family willing to die for one another was done really, really poorly or really rushed, this movie might actually kill you, because it is easily the most forced, yeah, we're a band of brothers now, bullshit that I've ever fucking seen in fiction, period. So yeah, this movie is a piece of shit. This might actually be the worst movie I've seen in 2016. Like, this isn't even like X-Men Apocalypse bad, where it's so bad it's funny. Like, no, this is easily the most fucking bad movie I've seen all year, and it is without a doubt the most tedious one of them all. And when a fucking Star Wars movie cannot be even kind of enjoyable for as much as 10% of its runtime, the same way Attack of the Clones is at the very, very end when they fight in the arena and then on Geonosis, you fucked up. Like, you seriously fucked up. And fuck the critics for giving this piece of shit an 80%. The fact that this thing has an 80% proves either two things. Either I'm a complete fucking psychopath when it comes to Star Wars and movies, period, or two, people like getting episode 4 or the originals jerked off a lot that they ignore the flaws. And make no mistake, the only people who can like this movie are the motherfuckers who suck the dick of the original trilogy. Just the fact that R2-D2 and C-3PO appear in this movie for 5 seconds and serve no fucking plot relevant purpose whatsoever and have no reason to be in it, they're gonna lose their shit and be like, oh my god, like how C-3PO's in this fucking movie, as though we didn't see him in the last fucking Star Wars movie from a year ago. No, seriously, fuck this franchise. I know I just said I like a lot of things about this franchise, but seriously, fuck this franchise sometimes, and fuck this franchise's fan base most of the time.